Hello and welcome to the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. I'm your host, Ben Porter, and I'm joined this Independence Day by Luke Gbedemah of Muster.
Hi there. Hi.
Did I say the name right?
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, one point to me then.
Absolutely. I'm gonna have to find a way to come back from that. I don't know your last name.
It's like interview pong.
Yeah, no, I'm down for that. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see how it goes. So how are we doing today, Luke?
Pretty good. Yeah, pretty good. This is a busy time of year. I gather it's kind of like that for lots of people now. I don't know if you're if you've got kids, your kids are sometimes doing exams, and if you're working, you're kind of I just feel incredibly busy. I've got a lot on my to-do list at the moment, but we're not bad. It's just been a bit of a slog.
I work in construction, so summers all go for that. Yeah, and then it's also convention season. Yeah. So
those are two examples that I was fumbling for when I said education. I was like, I know it's true of something else, but obviously because you don't want it raining all over you all the time. You do it when it's long daylight hours and no rain or little rain. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, it's more the fact that a lot of the heavy building work's done in the summer, as you say, because the weather's better. Lots of rewires and stuff. Bet you, for those of you listening, bet you did not think you would be getting a little look into the world of construction, but there you go.
No, you learn something unique and special every day.
That's a free one.
Yeah.
So now that we've got all the niceties out the way, why don't you tell the listeners, wherever they are, what Muster is?
Absolutely. So Muster is it's a mobile app that runs on iOS and Android for people who play tabletop games of all kinds, board games, CCGs, TCGs, miniature-based games, collectible miniature-based games, role-playing games, and any game that has that kind of inherent in-person social aspect to it, and all of the games that have that plus any kind of technological assistance. And the point of the app is to help people connect with more groups, more individual players, and more events nearby to them or in the places that they're sort of traveling to. We try and resist this analogy because it's not great, but we've had it been called the Tinder of tabletop gaming.
You know, I was just about to ask, is it like Tinder for tabletop gaming?
It is in a lot of respects, but I guess one of the big functional differences is that
you don't get sent lots of dick pics.
Well, that's the dick pics have not come into it, which is one big thing. That wasn't what I was going to go for first, but basically, it's not intended for dating. It's intended for the social function that kind of, I guess you call it matchmaking, which again has that kind of dating.
It has that connotation, but different kind of matchmaking.
Yeah. We looked at a lot of things, but one of them was asking whether the networking platform Steam for PC gamers. I don't know if you guys will have heard of it. Some of you must have done. Steam for tabletop gaming. How do we give players that matchmaking, that social networking, that ranking, all of that stuff that's inherent in PC gaming? How do we bring that to tabletop? And so Muster it's been in kind of a public beta phase since December. And what I've learned about software is that you will never accurately predict how long it'll take to build, and you'll never accurately predict how many kind of errors and bugs and things you'll find. So the process has been one of trying to fix and improve everything. But that's kind of the basic idea and where we're at with it now. Yeah.
So it's essentially, we were talking a little bit about stress testing earlier. This is really the stage you're at with Muster then.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, it's actually two things. Stress testing, certainly part of it, because we have the kind of designed functionality that we intended. But then we kind of, once we encountered all these users, when we went with the beta launch and went to a couple of conventions, which obviously is where we met at Aircon UK. Once we did that, we started getting all this other feedback, not just from stress testing, but kind of people recommending to us what they would want from a platform that we were describing, like the dream scenario, and we got different stories from different people. And one of the things with trying to cater to board gamers and miniature-based gamers and collectible card game, they all want slightly different things, and they all kind of prioritize slightly different things. So that process of listening has been has been really, really important, and we're still trying to do that. We're still trying to grow the number of testers and followers so that we can get a better idea, I guess, of how to improve.
Yeah, and I suppose as much as that's a huge part of the beta, that's a vital part of software development going forward, especially, as you say, for a community-driven project like Mustard.
Yeah, and it will probably never end. Or I in some ways, we hope it never ends, that process of hearing from people what they want. And even if it's just saying like my dream scenarios, that it could do this completely random kind of thing that's right on the edge of what any of the kind of mainstream users would want. That's interesting to hear and to know. And I think the more we learn from people, obviously the better the service or the product and the service that we can provide is. That like goes without saying. But yeah, my background isn't in software. I kind of stumbled into doing this. It's like an entrepreneurial thing, I guess, out of a cultural anthropology degree, which did not give me all of the employment opportunities in the world. So I guess I had to try and come up with something for myself. And for the moment, I'm kind of bringing my love of tabletop gaming together with something that I hope in the future will give me a full-time project and work. Yeah.
I mean, you say that about the limitations of that cultural anthropology degree, but at the same time, there must be some insights and some knowledge that you've taken from that and applied here.
Well, yeah, actually, as I was saying it, I was like, well, actually, hold on, there's this and this. And I mean, I guess from a vocational point of view, like I didn't have any qualifications that I would be kind of leveraging in it, but you're actually you're right. I think although what you learn in anthropology is it's a kind of very specific type of or way of looking at people and understanding the relationships between them and groups and communities and stuff. But I guess it's given me a backdrop for thinking about how to best understand a very diverse community of people. It would be one thing, which tabletop gamers certainly are. But yeah, I mean, if I were to like sit down and try and kind of comb through my experience of doing this startup and running this project, how many times do I feel like I've been being an anthropologist? I don't know how many would come up, but it would be interesting to think about.
Yeah, I think so. I dare say we could talk about that for a very long time as well. One of the things that you alluded to in our initial chat when we were at Aircon earlier this year. It's a great convention, by the way. If you're into open gaming, Aircon's the one to go to. I believe they've announced some new dates, so
they have
something in the show notes.
Mark, the one of the fantastic organisers, is he's pushing for their next event and trying to get stuff in line for that. So hopefully it'll be as well prepared as it was last time, and even bigger and better.
Well, this is a hell of a claim, but I believe what they have officially announced is that they have the most open gaming space of any European convention.
That's a cool stat.
That's quite a feat. But Aircon.
Yeah, it depends. Depends what you're looking for in that sense. Not to sort of question. I mean, everybody had a fantastic time as far as I know. But the open gaming space, for some people, that's not the priority, is it? It's like, what opportunities do you get to see new products or talk to designers or developers and stuff? But it's obviously a draw. I was just thinking about like, what could you do to say, oh, well, actually our convention's the most appealing in Europe, and open gaming space, don't get me wrong, is up there.
Well, it's a huge thing for people, isn't it? Because you see people bringing bags and bags of games, and at first you're like, "Oh, are you bringing that for the bringing by?" And like, no, this is just to play. Like, right, okay, if you like, carry on.
Yeah, I'm gonna sleep for 3 hours, and the rest of the time I'll be,
exactly. But I mean, like, you're right. Like for me, when I go to a convention, I want to go and play the things that I'm only going to be able to play there. So, I make a beeline for the demo area and all of that sort of thing. But, different strokes for different folks.
Absolutely true. Like we obviously had the business or like startup interest in being there and like trying to show off the app and connect with people in that way. But I loved hearing people who'd recently created a game and had it in like, they've got the foam cutouts and the fabric mat stuff with the like draft of the board and everything on it. In lots of cases, that's like the very raw form of the game, and like still working out how the basic gameplay mechanics are going to play out and like what the themes are and stuff. And I find that super interesting. I don't know whether this has ever cropped up for you guys, but one of the things I hope to do down the line is build a game, design a game of some kind. I don't know what.
But it's you're right though. It's quite exciting seeing a prototype, and it's weird because they look impressive, but a lot of the time look like kind of hand knitted at the same time. Because, like you say, it's the very early iterations of the game. But look, that's quite exciting. I think is watching the birth of something, I guess, to get a little bit arty about it. But
I mean, sometimes it's a load of bollocks as well, isn't it? Like, you'll sit down and they'll be like, "Oh, well, in order to get these tokens, you've got to skip over," and you're like, "Okay, well, like it would be nice to understand kind of why I'm doing this and like and putting in place those mechanics, but you've got to start somewhere, don't you?"
And there's some of them, you're right, where you sit down and you think, this is really bad, but there's something good in here,
Yes, a little golden nugget buried away somewhere in all of the kind of strange gameplay decisions. But you've got that. So everybody, like every amazing game developer, publisher, had their first game, right? And it may not have been as amazing. But you've got to put your best foot forward.
Got to start somewhere. But anyway, going back to our original conversation when we were at AirCon, one of the things that you alluded to in that conversation was that there had been similar apps and programs before Muster. What do you feel that Muster is doing that these other services are not?
That's a good question. That's probably the best question, actually, because when we started out, we looked very carefully at what was being done and how the problem that we thought existed for tabletop gamers was being solved by them. What sort of workarounds were they using? What tools and stuff are available? And part of that was other projects that said, "Oh, hey, we think there's a space for an app for tabletop gamers that can connect." Literally, people calling it like Tinder for tabletop gamers. And so to be clear, like in answer to your question, those projects that were done along a similar line to ours looked like they were lacking kind of several things in composition. The first was like lots of them appeared, or there were only a handful, but some appeared to have been done in a kind of a very kind of amateur hobby-esque kind of way. Not that all hobbies have kind of rubbish outcomes, but a software of the kind that you need for this, I feel like it can't really be delivered successfully by one developer in their spare time who also has a job or kids or plays games too often. But so that's one thing, and you're very unlikely to get a full stack developer or someone who will code an Android version and an iOS version, which of course you need because you've got players in both populations. And for something like this, a hybrid, like I don't even know the new technologies, but PhoneGap or something React that would work across both, it just doesn't give you fantastic performance, like end user experiences. So in that sense, we think we're the most professional attempt at solving this problem thus far. That's one thing. And the other is that we got the opportunity to look at those past projects and identify where we believed they'd gone wrong, I guess, with their product market fit or with their brand identity or whatever. Because at the end of the day, like every product that you're trying to convince people about, and by the way, Muster is completely free, so it's not really a sales pitch so much as an acquisition pitch for us. It's got to be attractive across the board. It's like you've got to see why it would be useful for you. You often want to see that other people are already involved in it. Like that's a big draw. And then the brand and messages surrounding the brand also have to be consistent. And we put a lot of time, and it's not perfect yet with Muster, and we put a lot of time and effort into creating that identity, even down to the name, right? Which for me came from that chapter in the Lord of the Rings, where the mustering of the Rohirrim, where they bring all the horsemen in the countryside together to go off and march on Minas Tirith or Pelennor Fields, and so
you've sold me on the Lord of the Rings analogy alone.
Yeah. Well, and that was the thing. It was like when you play tabletop games, you're going through that process. You want to summon people together and get kind of rallying cry going. And even if it's enemies, right? Like you can use Muster to look for enemies if you play these kind of opponent-based, competitive-based games. But that still has it still has those connotations, and it's like. I remember one of the first meetings we had with a kind of business interest, Magic Madhouse UK, who are fantastic, by the way, just another shout out. They were like, I love how subtly nerdy your name is. And I was like, that's exactly it. It's like, it's got kind of some literal meaning, and then it has all these kind of fantasy elements to it, which are very common in these games. And I've gone way away from what you originally asked. So the second thing about the projects that had existed already was that they were often being run out of run casually out of people's homes, I guess, and that meant that the marketing opportunities they had to businesses seemed to be quite limited.
So an amateur effort in the true sense of the word.
Yeah, definitely. And to their credit, like some of them have got pretty far with what appeared to be pretty weak software development and stuff. And so, but we're in London, which is not to say that that's the perfect place, but it is the center for a lot of growth in the industry at the moment. In terms of conventions, which we've spoken about a bit already, like there are a lot focused here, and there are huge and really awesome conventions elsewhere. But a lot of businesses starting up have their kind of thumb in London because they want to make sure that they can get part of this market and then see where else in the UK is viable. Because if you ever want to take your business to Europe or to the US, often you're going to go through London and have a community and a user base or customer base here. And that's exactly what we found. Like we were able to just sort of go out and meet with some huge names in this industry, like Modifius Entertainment, for example, who've just brought out the Fallout Wasteland Warfare game, which is a miniature system that
we did play it at UK Games Expo as well.
What did you think? Good. Honestly, well, yeah, I've not had a chance yet, but that we just their offices are sort of down the road from where I live and work. So there is something about that that we feel like the industry network that we're building is going to be one that really helps us to move forward and reach lots of players and get this community going, which is cool.
Okay. One of the things that's quite interesting that you mentioned there was that some people had taken this idea and sort of ran with it so far, and there's a number of designers of games that I've spoken to, and they've actually said similar things with their games, like, well, I played such and such game, and I liked that it did this thing, but I didn't like this aspect of it, so I decided to go and make my own version. And you've almost done the same thing, but with a piece of software.
Yeah, very much so. There's I'm going to butcher this quote, but there's one of Picasso's most famous quotes was good artists borrow, I think, and great artists steal. They steal from each other. And I think it's kind of arrogant to believe that you can create something incredible and self-sufficient and robust without ever looking at anything else that anybody else has done and trying to learn some lessons. Like that's how I think software works, and probably game development, and then just kind of our lives. Like imagine if you were developing as a person, but you never got to see anybody else doing anything to correct yourself or to learn something new or try something new. It just wouldn't work. Anything that's going to be good in the end, I think, has to learn from, bounce off other things around it. For sure.
Lovecraft was great for that because in a lot of his writing, we talk about the Cthulhu mythos.
Yeah.
Lovecraft, when he was still alive, he actually said to people, go ahead, write stories in my universe. He actually liked to see people creating things in his universe, which is almost polar opposite to Tolkien, who was very protective of what he did, and he only really wanted people to approach it in a certain way, whereas Lovecraft took a sort of carte blanche approach to it, and embraced this idea that there is an element, whether you like it or not, of cooperation and creating everything.
Yeah, I mean, that's fantastically interesting, right? Because I think obviously you can separate them quite significantly in time, but there is this idea that the artist, particularly in storytelling, they lose control, they lose ownership of their story the second it kind of translates out of them. Whether it's in print or literally in storytelling. Like I own my version of Aragorn and of Samwise, and like because I interpreted them and they've lived with me for this time, and I think the same goes with everybody else, is interpretation of fantasy.
It's why everyone gets so pissed when like an adaptation comes out, is because, like you say, they've had their own version of this guy that they've created, and when it doesn't match up with Peter Jackson's Aragorn, it's upsetting, because this weird sense of ownership develops, doesn't it?
And it's the familiarity that you have with the idea that you clearly own. Like I own my image of it, and it's the familiar that you don't want to see that kind of disrupted. But the connection there with the between the kind of fantasy writing and the software and it developing in response to other stuff is that it kind of links back to what I was saying about the user cases, the feedback, is that it would be so stupid of us to be like, no, we know how it's going to work, and we're going to go ahead and do that according to our plan, and like not and kind of be blinkered in that sense. We want to hear other people's interpretation of it. We want to hear their version, so that hopefully those strands can come together. Yeah.
I think you're spot on with it. I think particularly with anything community driven, whether you like it or not, it doesn't have to be true democracy, but I think there has to be a degree of democracy for it to work.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, we're kind of we're trying to muster people. We're trying to bring people together, and so if we're not listening to them, we don't really have much hope of doing that, for sure. Yeah.
So, I mean, you talked a little bit about the different games that you're aiming to cater for, but at the moment, in the beta stage, what is your breakdown of gamers looking like? Like, is it leaning towards the collectible card games, or the board games? How's that looking at the moment?
So one of the things that's unsurprising is that our kind of cross section of users now, even though it's not huge, is pretty much a cross section of tabletop gaming as it stands. You see in basically every account, like the very core board games as owned games and played games like Settlers, Carcassonne, for everything from like Risk and Monopoly, which people will say that they own and play, and then the dominant games are Magic the Gathering in its various forms, as well as D&D 5th edition, and then some people who still come together to play previous editions, and Warhammer. The Games Workshop games are immensely popular, and we were at the London Grand Tournament a couple of weeks ago, which was strictly miniatures, but it had kind of all of their all of Games Workshop systems running in tandem. They had a big Horus Heresy.
I saw a picture of a couple of the tables with what I can only describe as the shittest, saddest collection of terrain I have ever seen.
So I wasn't going to bring this up as the first thing, but I think they did. they did have a bit of a struggle with providing the type of kind of the quality of terrain that people look for at a GT. Like, it's ITC sanctioned as far as I know, which is the kind of international ranking credential stuff for playing 40k competitively, at least. And some of these tournaments, you see ones kind of around the world. There are opens in Las Vegas, and the tables are like off the chain. Like they really have some serious stuff going in, but it's also modular, and like they can adapt it between rounds. And I think they kind of just came down to the wire at this London one and hadn't quite got enough of it sorted. But I mean, like we were talking about before, having to do your first thing for the first time and do your best. Like, that was the first or second, I think, LGT, and it was in a new, larger venue and stuff. So I mean, I can't understand. I can't really appreciate how stressful and difficult it must be to know that you've got 400 very competitive, queued up 40k gamers coming, and they want to get their games and they want to be on time and everything.
Certainly that is a tall order, but at the same time, like, from the player perspective, because there was a huge backlash on it in Facebook. I don't play 40k, but I play a lot of Age of Sigmar, so I'm in a lot of the Games Workshop groups. And that picture was plastered all over the internet.
It wasn't. I mean, we saw it firsthand. Not literally that image being taken, but the quality of all the boards, like, probably was substandard, but I think they know that, right? Like, they weren't under the illusion that they'd really nailed it on the terrain. At the
same time, though, I think, when you're charging £50 a ticket for the privilege of playing on that board, that's going to stick in your craw a bit as a customer, I think.
Definitely, and I mean, I think miniature war gamers, the likes of whom had attended that tournament were they were rightfully scrupulous about what had gone on, and I guess, like, the main observation is, like, next year, if they get people to come, they'll make sure that the terrain is right, because there's no way that they could afford for a repeat. But I mean, there are other things in the pipeline, as far as I know, for more kind of casually orientated, cinematic and fluffy tournaments that wouldn't necessarily be ITC, and would be more about getting people for the kind of aesthetic and whatever. Like,
campaign play's always been a big deal for Games Workshop, hasn't it? But for some reason, the community is fixated upon match play. But I mean, I prefer campaign play.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that people just want to bring cheese, and they just want to wipe the opponent off the face of the earth with spamming whatever units necessary. And I don't think those people, I don't think those men and women, some women, are leaving the community, and people who want to game in that way will continue to do so. But I think I don't want to get into, like, safe spaces, because not not for now, but you create an environment where one type of gaming can prevail, and whether that's like campaign because it's specifically for that, and people who are into that aspect of it will get their jollies, and then you can let the people who want to throw cheese at one another do that, and everyone can be happy.
And Muster's great for that again, because you can look for specific game types, can't you?
Yeah. We're actually building a plan for the type of segmentation that we'll want, like in an ideal universe. But for the moment, every game system, every edition and stuff is fully filterable and separated. So the communities can exist all in one map. Like you can go and see, just who's nearby or who's attending these events for anything. But hopefully we'll see people using it to get exactly what they want in terms of an opponent to play, or the fifth player in a campaign that they need to pick up, or something, because they know sort of precisely what they're looking for. And we're still, again, in sort of listening, we are updating, adding games to the database as they come up. So one of the cool things at Aircon was we had some of the developers who were there demoing and kickstartering games be like, oh well, I mean, can we let you know when we're out there, so that we can be included? And we were like, yeah, that's 100% what we want to be kind of seeing and working with people as they emerge in the industry.
Yeah. So what does the future look like for Muster? What's the desired outcome?
Well, I mean, we want to create, like I was saying, with that analogy at the start, not Tinder, with Steam. We want to be the Steam of tabletop gaming. And what that will hopefully look like is the capability for players to get sort of exactly the type of game they want, where they want, when they want, with the players that they want, and to have kind of intelligent feedback on that system. So what we already have now is the beginnings of that in a reporting, commending, ranking function. So players' profiles will be kind of accredited with commends as they attend sessions, and people give them thumbs up and stuff, which for the moment is just a reflection of like anything from knowing the rules and being friendly and competent to, I mean, we're not beating around the bush, like hygiene and stuff. that can sometimes, no fingers pointed, be an issue in this industry.
I know that, like, just about every event I've been to recently, there's like cans of deodorant sat down at convenient places.
Yeah, and it's people know about it, and we all want to do something about it. But yeah, so that's one thing, and that's really where the parallel with Steam ends, in that there's the matchmaking, social community function, and then the reporting, banning. But the future really for us is in the production and distribution of games as they're being created, we hope, giving new Kickstarters or publishers or creators a platform for testing their game, and then for finding players to play their game, hosting tournaments and events to publicize their game, and kind of marketing their products in that way. And it works for a campaign book in the same way that it works for a new range of miniatures or a new block of cards in a CCG. And like that's all. It's fairly ambitious, but that's the vision, I think, for now. But it's all based on that kind of social and organizational tool that we thought and still think people need and want.
Yeah. Well, it sounds all very exciting, and I look forward to seeing how it progresses in the coming months. But that is about all we've got time for today.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So if people would like to take a look at the Muster app, where do they need to go look?
They can get us all over the place. We've got a website, which is musterapp.co.uk. And we're actually running a blog on there at the moment. So I kind of just pick up stories and stuff from people we meet and who grease us online, and just stuff about our idea. And yeah, that's musterapp.co.uk. And then we're on Instagram and on Facebook and stuff. So you could also just get us by Googling, I think. I mean, there aren't that many things out there in the world called Muster. And if you throw a tabletop gaming or app and stuff on there, that's how. And then, of course, if you want to go and download the app, you can do so from the app stores, from Google Play and the App Store. And we massively appreciate, and this is a short pitch, any feedback along the lines that we've just been talking about, like things you'd want it to do, or things that it's not doing correctly at the moment. We wouldn't be more happy to hear that. And yeah, that's where to find us and what we're doing at the moment.
Great. Look, thank you for joining us on the show today.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It was a pleasure.
Yep.
Yeah.
And for all of our listeners, wherever you are, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Hi everyone, it's Charlotte from the Unlucky Frog Gaming Podcast. Thank you so much for listening. Now be sure to follow us on Facebook and Twitter. All you need to do is search Unlucky Frog Gaming. You can also show your support for the Unlucky Frog through Patreon. To find out more information, check out our website, www.unluckyfrog.com. Thanks, bye!